Hey guys, it's Yorkie here with some Project Cars single player gameplay racing against the AI around Imola. We're in an old school DTM style race, driving a Mercedes-Benz 190e, just waiting for that green light. There it is, so shifting up into first gear as we launch off the line, getting an okay start, taking a quick glance over into the right wing mirror just to see how the guy behind me got off the line. And I'm now approaching turn 1, looking down the inside with a couple of cars, gaining 1 or 2 places off the start. Although it looks like we're going to going too wide into the first turn, make that 3 wide, sorry. Coming through, getting a little bit of contact there. There was a second knock there. It's going to shove me off wide into the grass. So having to recover a little bit, leaving room on the outside there just in case. And there is a red Ford Escort Cosworth on my outside. Slipping past 2 slow drivers just there down the inside. Again, another little bit of contact there, just a small knock. Not knocking me off the track this time, although I did run a little bit wide there and use the AstroTurf upon the exit. And we're now coming round the outside into this hairpin of this Ford Escort Cosworth, going door to door, getting very, very close. And now it looks like he's actually coming back at me a little bit, coming up the hill, but I am managing to power up the hill ever so slightly better than he has, as he has to manage quite a large turbo that does have quite a big kick when the boost comes in. Getting very, very close, again going door to door with this green Cosworth that's now on my inside, slipping around the outside of him quite nicely as we come down the hill into this rather difficult right-handed kink, which has a pretty hard braking zone just after it to get the car slowed down and turned into here. So a fairly interesting first half of the first lap, then getting a little bit of oversteer, then a little bit of contact, costing me a couple of places, but making places as well, trying to recover. Looks like we've closed up quite nicely to this BMW up in front of me in the braking zone. That a little bit extra room, allowing me to brake just how I'd like to into that corner. And now comes down, looks like we're going side by side into this right-handed kink. This is a little bit difficult, looks like I'm slightly ahead. Now coming into this braking zone, he's actually now coming back at me into the inside, so giving him room there, getting very, very close indeed to the inside there. Very close to making contact as the 2 guys up in front of us get side by side, and possibly a tiny bit of contact I didn't quite see, but probably the Cosy getting a little bit oversteery as it tries to put the power down and then the turbo kicks in. So yeah, fantastic first lap so far into the races. It looks like we're closing the gap, trying to gain the slipstream of this BMW in front of us, but I brake ever so slightly earlier just to account for that speed, and also to try and get the car nicely stable and slowed down coming into the first complex of turns. Coming into turn 3, taking a slightly better line than he does and using a bit more of the exit curve, giving me a good run as we now come down into turn 4, but obviously there's no room on the outside. Slipping down the inside and getting that move pulled off quite nicely and just blocking the inside there, although running a little bit deep on the exit, but that's pulled me right up to the rear of this rather funky paint jobbed BMW there. But slipping up the inside of him, coming into the entrance of the hairpin. It's better usually to take a wider line entry into that corner, but obviously that does leave the door open to anyone who is primed to taking that opportunity, such as myself, diving down the inside upon the entrance. So again, a much better run than this Cosy, who's now up ahead of us, closing up on him quite nicely, very close in fact, just about managing to avoid contact there as we come into that first right-hand kink, but that time there was a tiny little bit of contact, rubbing bumper to bumper. That's gone and shoved him out wide. Got a slight knock on my right-hand side there as that BMW slipped up alongside, so I've gone and lost a place. The BMW looking rather threatening from behind, but defending that inside line into the chicane as he lurks to the outside, but there's no real opportunity here. If I've got that first apex hooked up, I'm just going to shut the door on that second part, which is exactly what I do. And I'm not too sure why the AI does a little wiggle there. It does slow them down, which is giving me the opportunity again to get on the inside in this right-hand kink. But, well, the move's now pretty much done and dusted. In fact, no, it's not. He's looked like he was coming back, so giving it a little bit of room. Short spurt of the throttle there's going to unsettle the car ever so slightly. Getting very close, using that track IR just to see where he is on that inside. It's absolutely fantastic tours. A couple of cars are actually pulling off into the pits. Not entirely sure why when this is a 6-lap race. Obviously, you can see my fuel gauge there saying 25.5 now. That is going down as I'm obviously racing. As we look to the inside of this BMW down into turn 1, I've got the inside line, taking my usual braking point, but the AI do brake a fair bit later and a fair bit harder. I probably could brake a little bit later myself, but I do try and take it a little bit more cautiously just to make sure that the car is nicely settled and is nicely balanced, ready for turn in, and to continue on through the corners as turn 2 does follow it. Tiny little bit of contact there as give him a slight knock. He stayed on the brakes a little bit longer than I than I did and I was anticipating. So we're now coming into the hairpin, kind of looking to the outside, hooking up a tighter, later apex, which would usually allow me to get on the power a little bit earlier and get a good drive coming up the hill. However, he was right there and I had to back out ever so slightly. So we're now looking to the outside in this relatively medium speed left-hander. Gone a little bit deep though, and got a fair bit of oversteer coming up onto the curb upon the exit, which has allowed him to retain that position. And we're now just going to follow him through this complex of corners. It is very, very difficult under braking to actually maneuver the car and position it in a place where it will give you a good opportunity to overtake unless the other guy does make a major mistake. So coming into the chicane now, gave a slight additional dab on the brakes, hooking up a fairly tighter apex, climbing the curb a little bit more on that right hander. Actually now moving to what is going to be the outside in this left hander, running the grass ever so slightly there as well. He is still side by side, although we both do back out the throttle there, and I've now got the inside for this corner. So this move should be pretty much done and dusted. A very small lock up there upon turning to the apex as I was just lingering on the brakes. Major oversteer coming out through the final corner, climbing up on that inside curb and trying to put the power down, but managing to just about keep hold of it. Didn't quite get a nice drift out of it, but still it's allowed me to retain the position, and I now believe we are in third place. I believe we started in 9th or 10th, somewhere along those lines. So in and amongst the chaos of the last few laps, losing places and gaining places, we have now managed to climb our way back up into third. As you can see, second place is just up the road, but first is just long gone. He's way off into the distance. So my target for this race is probably going to be at best a second position. Very doubtful I'm going to get first unless something goes horribly wrong for the guy in the lead. So coming into the hairpin then, braking just before that 50-meter board, taking that wider entry, hooking up a later apex, climbing the curb quite nicely and using all the road upon the exit, giving a good drive up the hill. And it is quite a lot of fun to actually drive these cars. Obviously, them being fairly old, and well, they probably did have good technology for their time, but compared to nowadays, the downforce and the grip that you get from the tyres and also the general balance of the car isn't as great as the cars these days. So there is a fair bit more focus on being smooth, trying to get the car nicely settled and balanced, and just managing the weight transition and trying not to take curbs too aggressively. But these did have quite big engines as well, so trying to actually get the power down and maximising the acceleration coming out of corners can be a little bit difficult, especially in that Ford Escort Cosworth. Like I said earlier, it does have a turbo on it, and that does kick in the higher revs, which can take you by surprise a fair bit. This Mercedes and also the BMW ahead are a fair bit more easily manageable, but also just as quick and probably just as much fun to drive. So as you can see, the gap has visually closed quite an awful lot in that lap, and I now believe we are approaching the final stages of the race, actually now coming in on onto the final lap. So coming into the first turn, getting a fair bit of lock up coming on the brakes, just about turning in. Well, I did miss the apex, but I managed to keep the car on the track. A little bit of oversteer coming out of the exit on turn 2, sorry, and into turn 3, but still managing to keep the car all together and still able to close the gap to the BMW overhead, especially through turns 4 and 5 just there. Now coming into the left-hander, sorry, hairpin of turn 6. There is that line that I was talking about. Could have been a little bit tighter to the apex on the inside, and obviously would have been a little bit earlier on the throttle if the BMW wasn't so close up ahead. We're now actually gaining on him at a fair rate coming into this left-hander, having a look down the outside, getting very close to the right rear of that car with my left front, almost making contact but not quite. And this is what I love about these kind of cars, is you can go door to door, wheel to wheel, and trade a tiny bit of paint without making too much damage or making too much contact and knock the other guy off the road. And it is great fun and really quite intense. So we're now coming into the latter part of the lap. I want to try and get a good run coming out through the exit of this chicane. It looked like he backed out the throttle ever so slightly as this car did spit a bit of flame. That was that weird twitch that the AI seemed to do that would make him a fair bit faster. Coming down here, coming down side by side into this right-handed king, both backing out. He's got the inside, coming into this penultimate corner of the lap, giving him room there. It looks like he's taking it, using as much of the exit as possible, getting very, very close again. Look at that, so close without actually making any contact. But that's gone and given me a fantastic run, and it's now just a pure straight drag race down to the end, down to the start finish line, and it looks like I've managed to pull this off and managed to gain second place as we now come across the start finish line to complete that race. And what a fantastic race it was against the AI. The AI constantly being improved in the game, and that was a pretty good demonstration of how good they are right now. Obviously there's a couple of areas which they need to work on, but overall really quite impressive and really quite fun to actually drive against. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave any ratings, comments or questions down below, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care.